Have you ever noticed how your body often seems to know what you're feeling before your mind does? Maybe you've felt butterflies before an interview, a lump in your throat while trying not to cry, or your heart racing before you've even realized you're anxious. Perhaps you've blushed with embarrassment, breathed a huge sigh of relief after hearing good news, or even found yourself crying through sheer happiness. Isn't that curious? Our body seems to have its own way of expressing what words sometimes can't. If you watched last week's video about emotional intelligence, we explored why understanding our emotions can help us respond to life with greater awareness instead of simply reacting. Today, I'd like to take that conversation one step further. Because if our emotions show up so clearly in our body, what is our body actually trying to tell us? Hi, welcome to my channel, where we gently explore spirituality, inner growth, reflection, and reconnecting with ourselves. Today, I'd love us to explore one of the most thought-provoking questions I've ever come across: the relationship between our emotions and our body. We'll look at it through the eyes of psychology, spirituality, and some of the world's oldest healing traditions. Not because any one perspective has all the answers, but because I find it so interesting that people from so many different traditions have explored this same question. The more I've thought about this, the more I've found myself wondering something quite simple. If our body really has been communicating with us all this time, how much have we missed? Most of us were never taught to listen in this way. We learn to notice our body when we're injured, when we're ill, or when something hurts enough that we can't ignore it anymore. But what about all the quieter messages? The tension we carry in our shoulders, the knot in our stomach before making a difficult decision, the way our breathing changes when we're worried, or how completely relaxed our body feels when we're with people who make us feel safe. I can't help but wonder how many of those little signals we've brushed aside over the years because we were busy, distracted, or simply didn't know they might mean something. Were they just random physical sensations? Or was our body gently trying to get our attention? I don't know if anyone has all the answers to those questions, but I do know they've been asking them for a very long time, and perhaps that's reason enough to become a little more curious. This isn't a new conversation at all. In fact, this question has fascinated people throughout history. What I found remarkable is that many of them reached surprisingly similar conclusions, even though they lived in different parts of the world and had no way of sharing ideas with one another. I first came across these ideas back in 2005 through Louise Hay's work. At the time, I'd never really considered that our emotional world and our physical body might be so closely connected. That curiosity eventually led me to explore other authors, different healing modalities, and, later, research from psychology and trauma as well. I don't think any one person has all the answers, but I couldn't help noticing how many different paths seemed to point in the same direction. The more I explored, the more I noticed something I hadn't expected. Whether I was reading about psychology, trauma, Ayurveda, traditional Chinese medicine, or energy healing, they all seemed to be exploring the same relationship, just from different angles. That doesn't mean they're all saying exactly the same thing, far from it. But it did make me stop and wonder, could they each be describing part of a much bigger picture? As I continued exploring these different perspectives, I realized I didn't have to agree with everything I came across. But I also didn't want to close the door on an idea simply because it challenged what I already believed. Somewhere along the way, I came to appreciate the value of healthy skepticism, balanced with an open mind. Perhaps the sweet spot lies somewhere between the two. We don't have to accept every idea we come across, but we don't have to dismiss it simply because we don't fully understand it either. After all, curiosity has often been the beginning of some of our greatest discoveries. One thing I found especially interesting was that different traditions didn't just suggest that our emotions affect our body. Many of them even began asking whether different emotions might be connected with different parts of the body. For example, some traditions associate anger with the liver, grief with the lungs, or fear with the kidneys. Traditional Chinese medicine describes a network of energy pathways known as meridians, while yogic traditions speak about nadis and chakras. Donna Eden explores the body's energy systems in yet another way, although these traditions use different models and different ways of explaining what they observe. I couldn't help noticing they all seem to be asking remarkably similar questions. Could our body be holding on to experiences in ways we don't fully understand? Could our emotions influence us more deeply than we've ever realized? Or perhaps these ideas are simply symbolic ways of helping us understand ourselves. Whatever the answer may be, I think they're thought-provoking questions to explore. Whether we see these ideas as literal, symbolic, or somewhere in between, they've encouraged millions of people to become more aware of the relationship between their emotional well-being and their physical body. And I think that's the most valuable part of all. They invite us to slow down, to notice, and to become curious about what our own body might have been trying to tell us all along. As our understanding of the mind has grown, psychology has also begun exploring the connection between our emotions and our body. While it may use very different language from many spiritual traditions, I find it interesting that it, too, recognizes that our experiences can leave a lasting impression on us, both emotionally and physically. One of the people whose work really helped bring this into the mainstream is psychiatrist Bessel van der Kolk. Through years of working with people who had experienced trauma, he explored how difficult experiences don't simply disappear because time has passed. Instead, our body and nervous system can continue responding long after the original event has ended. In other words, even when our mind knows we're safe, our body doesn't always get the message straight away. I think most of us can relate to that in one way or another. We hear a sudden loud noise and jump. Someone raises their voice and we instantly feel uneasy. We receive a stressful phone call and immediately feel our stomach tighten. Our body often reacts before our conscious mind has had time to make sense of what's happening. Our mind and body aren't separate conversations. They're part of the same story. And perhaps the more we understand that connection, the more we begin to understand ourselves, and the quieter messages our body may have been trying to share with us all along. As my curiosity grew, I came across another interesting idea. This conversation doesn't end with trauma or difficult experiences. Many authors and healing practitioners began asking an even bigger question. If our body can respond to our experiences, could it also respond to the thoughts, beliefs, and emotions we live with every single day? Louise Hay explored the possibility that different emotional patterns might be reflected in different parts of the body. Later, I came across people like Marisa Peer, who speaks about the powerful beliefs we carry from childhood, and Bruce Lipton, whose work encouraged many people to think differently about the relationship between our beliefs, our environment, and our well-being. Then there are authors such as Dr. Bradley Nelson, who suggests that unresolved emotions may continue to influence us long after the original experience has passed. Of course, these are different perspectives, and they don't all explain things in the same way. I noticed they all seem to share one simple idea, that the way we think, the way we feel, and the way we speak to ourselves may matter far more than we once realized. Whether we're talking about affirmations, changing old beliefs, or simply becoming kinder in the way we speak to ourselves, the greatest gift these ideas offer is hope. They invite us to consider a different possibility. What if, by understanding our emotions more deeply and becoming aware of the beliefs we've carried for so long, we also begin changing the way our body responds? What if healing isn't only about what we do for our body, but also about how we relate to ourselves? I don't think anyone has all the answers. But I do find it comforting to think that we're not necessarily defined by our past. We can continue learning, growing, and discovering new ways of thinking, feeling, and relating to ourselves. And if our thoughts, emotions, and beliefs really do play a part in our overall well-being, then that also means we may have far more influence over our future than we once believed. And that's where real healing begins. The more I listen to all of these different voices, the more one thought kept coming back to me. What if none of them are trying to tell the whole story? What if each one is simply describing a different piece of the same puzzle? Psychology helps us understand the nervous system and the lasting impact our experiences can have on us. Ancient healing traditions encourage us to look at the flow of energy throughout the body. Spiritual teachers often invite us to explore our beliefs, our emotions, and our inner world. Each offers a slightly different perspective, yet all of them seem to be pointing towards the same simple idea, that our mind, body, and emotions are deeply connected. That's why so many people find value in exploring more than one approach. Not because we have to choose between them, but because each one may help us understand ourselves from a slightly different angle. After all, we're wonderfully complex human beings. It seems only natural that there might be more than one way of understanding what it means to heal. For me, that's one of the most beautiful parts of this journey. We don't have to stop being curious just because we don't yet have all the answers. Curiosity may be one of the greatest gifts we can bring to our own healing. Every question we ask opens another door, and every door invites us to understand ourselves a little more deeply than before. Perhaps the greatest gift this conversation can offer isn't another answer, but another way of looking at ourselves. Maybe the next time you notice your shoulders feeling tense, a knot in your stomach, a lump in your throat, or your heart racing, rather than immediately trying to make those feelings disappear, you simply become curious. You pause for a moment and gently ask yourself, what might my body be trying to tell me? There's no single answer to that question. Psychology offers one perspective. Spirituality offers another. Ancient healing traditions offer others. Each invites us to look at ourselves through a slightly different lens. And while they don't all agree, they all encourage us to do something many of us rarely do: to listen. Not with fear, not with judgment, but with kindness, compassion, and curiosity. Because when we begin to honor ourselves, we also begin to notice where we were once quietly betraying ourselves. And that's where every healing journey begins. Not in having all the answers, but in being willing to ask gentle questions, to stay open, and to keep exploring. So wherever you are on your own journey, I hope this conversation has simply planted a seed of curiosity, one that encourages you to notice your body a little more, listen to it a little more deeply, and trust it a little more than you did yesterday. Until next time, love yourself deeply. If this resonated with you, please like the video and feel free to share your thoughts in the comments below. And if you enjoy this kind of content, please consider subscribing. Thank you so much for spending this time with me. See you in the next one.